Hi, welcome back to my channel. Today, hey, welcome back to my channel. Um, or if you're here for the first time, for some reason my video came up across your feed, then welcome here for the first time. This video, then you're here for the video. So just sit back and let me talk about books today. So basically, I'm doing a fall slash winter book recommendation slash TBR, and I know that's a lot, but I felt like it was a waste of time to make two separate videos with my TBR and my fall and winter recommendations because I feel like they're kind of one and the same. But mostly because I realized that while I was going through my books to find like my recommendations, while I was going through my books trying to find my recommendations, I realized that a lot of my like fall recommendations or fall and winter recommendations are also books that I have not read yet, that I have bought to read, that I've heard some great things about, but I haven't. And I'll tell you when I show you a book if I've read it, if I haven't. Obviously, I feel like you'll be able to tell the difference when I'm talking about it, but I'm gonna just get into it. I don't. I really was gonna separate about Powell, but I think it just makes more sense to just talk about the book as I go along. So I'm just gonna go into the books, straight into it. I will say, okay, so the first books that I have are basically all romance. And if anything, the majority of them are sports romance, except for one. Um, and the thing about, I think, and to be fair, it's also hockey. And in my head, cold sport equals cold weather. So, that's why you're going to get a lot of these. So the first recommendation I have is for Play for Keep, from the Play for Keep series by Becca Mack, which is Consider Me, which I've talked about, and I think I talked about in my first video, one of my favorite series of all time. This is probably my favorite book, maybe my second favorite book because I just read the most recent book, and I love this series. But I think hockey romance is always just gonna be a good time. I think if you like hockey romances, this is a great book. It's up there. I think in terms of like hockey romances, if you're gonna read a hockey romance, this is up there. This is like very, 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 very up there in terms of like, for me, in terms of like how good. Like if you ask me to rate my favorite hockey romance series, this would probably be my top two. Like genuinely and honestly, this would probably be my top two. But I think it's just a good time. It is a little bit of a long read. I think if you want like a short and sweet read because the book is like almost like is over 400 pages. I think that you're definitely this definitely isn't gonna be like the recommendation for you. But I think you should definitely, when you feel like you can reach the level to read a longer book like this, you should definitely check this book out. The next book, also a hockey romance, but also this is my man, so any chance I get to talk about Henry, I'm gonna talk about Henry personally. Uh, and to be fair, I also synonymously connect college romances and fall stuff together. So like I was gonna recommend this book anyway. I mean, I honestly like this book because my being an older sister, it just vibed with me so well. Like being an older sister, having to take on like the responsibility of being like, you know, having to take on the responsibilities that come with being an older sister. This book just felt like it sat right with me. Like I saw a lot of myself in this book in so many levels that I feel like sometimes it's hard. Like books in my head, a book doesn't have to be realistic. I don't have to relate to it to like it. But I think this book just, because I could see a lot of myself in this book, it made me like it a lot more. Also, Henry. That's it. I'm not recommending Icebreaker because I know that for a lot of people, that one was hit or miss. But this one, again, any opportunity to talk about Henry, like this is I think that if you didn't like Icebreaker and you didn't like Wildfire, I feel like give this book a chance. And if you don't like this book, then never take hockey romance recommendations from me ever again because obviously we have very different tastes in books, but this book honestly is was such a good, fun, like calm read for me. Like, I think that if you were like you're in a book slump and you want a book, and you're looking for like a good hockey romance to read during the fall with your like cup of hot chocolate, this book definitely up there and one of the books that I would definitely recommend. Honestly, I recommend to everybody. Again, any opportunity to talk about Henry, I'm gonna talk about Henry.
Just stop.
Third book, hockey romances. We're getting out the way because the rest of this stuff is like fantasy and mysteries. So we're getting the romance stuff out the way for the people that are here for the romance. Okay, Collide. Love this book. The author recently came out with a new book. I think it's called Spiral. I haven't read it yet because I'm on a low key a book buying man, which I know I say that a lot. Like, if you follow me on TikTok, I say that a lot. But I'm trying to stick to it for the rest of the year and not buy anything that I haven't already pre-ordered. I'm only saying that because one of the books two of the books I pre-ordered came recently, so I have to throw that in there so you guys know. But also really cute. This was such like I read this book I believe earlier this year, and it was just one of those books that I didn't know what I was going into because I recommended it by a couple of my mutuals, and I remembered the author like posting about the book, and I was like, I don't know, because I was in a really big book slump at the time that I started reading this book, and I was like, I don't know, I don't think I'm anything can get me out of this slump, but I'm gonna read it because I really wanted to read, and then Mutual had told me the book was so good, and I read this book, and I will say like I don't know what it is. Maybe it is that hockey romances are just the things that get me out of book slumps because when I read this book, I think a little bit after I read this book, I started reading again, like reading my usual amount of books again. This book was just great. Like, I'm trying to like stick with me here because I'm like trying to figure out how to put this book into words. But like a student with ambitious goals, and he's a jock, and you know how that is.
Okay. Whatever you say.
Or actually, I have no idea what that is. But I'm assuming some people know what that's like. But yeah, okay, okay. Next book, and this is the book I was talking about in terms of pre-orders. So this is the book I was talking about in terms of pre-orders. Striker by Anna Han recently came out. Haven't read it. It's on my TBR. But I think it's definitely since it just came out. I'm putting it down as a full recommendation. I would recommend any Anna Han book to anyone. Standalone series, anything. Like, at this point, almost all my friends have read the entire series or are making their way through the series. So, like, that's just how much I love. I kind of wish that I could have gone to her release party that happened at the Times Square in Union Square, but like the tickets sold out immediately, and I'm kind of glad I didn't go to it because I was at Comic Con the day before, and I was like, I went home, I was so tired, I was so drained. Like, I had a jam packed weekend, and I was like, I don't know how I'm gonna do that. That shit was at midnight. I was stressed. I was kind of glad, but I was kind of sad that I didn't get to go because the tickets sold out like immediately. Like, I set an alarm for it, and I still missed. They were gone, which is every Anna Han experience because people love her. I actually don't know anything about this book. I know that Donovan has shown up in the King of Sin series that she has written, and which I'm pointing out behind me. Like, you guys can see. I don't know. Maybe you can see it. I don't know. I can't really see from the side of my camera. But I can't really see from the side of my camera. But she, but I pre-ordered this. Like, I don't remember anything about Donovan. I don't. I would have to go reread whatever book he showed up in, and it was either King of Greed or King of Sloth. I don't remember at all. I'm gonna be honest with y'all. But I did pre-order it when I did remember him, and I think I did like him. I think he's like a soccer player, football, but soccer. He plays soccer. But apparently, it's like it's a rival sisters thing. I'm like reading the back because I don't remember anything about this book. Like, I don't remember anything about the character, but I am excited to read it. It's on my TBR. Like, I downloaded it on my Kindle. I just bought the physical book because I like having physical book, but I have it on my Kindle. And once I finish reading the series I'm currently reading, this is the next thing I'm gonna start. Okay. Last thing in the romantic, then we're moving on to the mystery and the fantasy stuff, is Alfred Lim. And purely because they meet on Halloween. That's the only reason I'm even like making this a full recommendation is because they meet on Halloween. I generally did love this book though. And I haven't read any more of the author's books yet because I just haven't had a chance to sit down and read this author's books. Because I've been trying to because of the books I've been in, I've been trying to catch up with everything else that I've missed. But this book was just such like this book I think this book does a good job of like giving representation to people with I don't know if this is the right word to say limb differences. I'm trying to like think like people who have like who have disabilities because of missing limbs. I don't know how to. Oh, I apologize if I worded that wrong. If I worded that wrong, and but I think it was great because like I think it opens up a door to at least for me because whenever I read about characters that I can't necessarily relate to but want to learn more about like their experiences and just like or just any opportunity to learn more about the experience of people who have different lives and who have to live a different life because of circumstances in their lives that they can't control. Really cute love story. Their disabilities aren't meant. The thing that I like about it is that the disabilities aren't meant to be like the center of focus. You know, like it's basically just saying like, hey, these two have a disability, but it doesn't mean that takes anything away from the story. Like this is one of those books that is just like one of those books like you don't have to relate to the story at all to enjoy it, but you don't have to relate to the story at all to like it. And there are many people who are there are a lot of people who aren't gonna relate to these two characters' experiences because they have all their limbs. But it just does a really good job, in my opinion, of because I haven't seen a single person, at least in my from what I've seen, say a bad thing about this book. It's fun. Also, I love that the like this is a one night stand turn to like accidental to a pregnancy thing because I love that trope. Like I love the accidental pregnancy trope when it happens at the beginning of the book. Like I hate when it happens like towards the end because I don't because that is just an excuse for a third act breakup. Like don't give me that. Give it to me at the beginning so I can watch them like learn to be parents together and like try to co-parent and like then somehow like organically fall in love. Like I love that. But generally, I honestly loved this book and am again recommending it. And that is the end of my fall recommendations for romance. I also want to state that all of these books I've read these books. I just haven't read Striker because it recently, I literally just got this week, so I haven't read it yet. But everything else I've recommended to you for romance, I've read. They're all sports, but they're still good sports. So read them, please. Okay, now these are gonna be fantasy and mystery. Um, I'm gonna start out with the stuff that I have read just to kind of like get that out the way. Uh, this is the One of Us is Not Lying series. This is the One of Us is Lying series. This series I like generally enjoyed so much because I like a good mystery, but I feel like it's hard to find a good mystery that actually is compelling and does a good job, like that keeps you on the edge of your seat to the end. Because when I read this book, the whole book, I'm like, who's lying? I'm like, who is the one that did this? Like, who killed this boy? Who did it? Whole book, and it caught me off guard by who did it because it was just done so well. Like it was written so well, and you like it had you doubting everyone. I think honestly, I'm saying that it gave me like I feel like it's a niche amount of people that don't get this reference, but it gave me like Young Justice season 1 vibes, and I think that's why I liked it so much because it played on that like who's the mole theory thing, and you know I generally like I love this, and same with this book. Like the second book, which it it's a spin on it's the same it's in the same universe with a lot with similar characters, but we also meet a lot of new characters, and the story is also is done and written like a lot of times. Sometimes the sequel will make or break whether or not like a series is good, but this one held up like really well compared to this book. Like I still enjoyed this book more than this book, but I still like if you asked me to give you the series and recommend it, I would give it the entire series because it was just that good. I also want to say that I have like I know I said that I was gonna show the book that I haven't read. I haven't read this book, but this is also part of the series. But I've heard really good things about this book, and because it's in the same universe and written by the same author, I'm really genuinely excited to read it. So like like it's on my TBR for this year. I'm gonna come back in circle and show you guys all the TBR stuff, but just telling you really quick because I know nothing about this book. I have no premise about this book. I haven't read anything about this book. I know what the book is about, but I know that I'm gonna read it. Okay, another book that I read that's a mystery, Vicious Games. Like, first of all, love we love a black main character in a book, okay? Especially in a mystery book, love it. This book, it gave me. I will say that it gave me like Ace of Spades, like Mystery Incorporated vibes, which I know is a lot of shows in one. But I feel like if you've seen any of the shows or the books that I just mentioned, then you definitely know what vibe I'm talking about. Like this author, I talked about this book on my TikTok like last year because I read this book last year, I think. No, yeah, I read this book last year this time. I loved it. Like I think I recommended it to a bunch of people in my class who asked for it, and it was one of those books. First of all, the cover's so pretty, isn't it? So pretty. I'm sorry, I'm getting off topic. It's one of those books that like is similar to One of Us. Is similar to One of Us is Lying in the way that it was so suspenseful. Like I love a mystery that like I spend the entire book trying to piece the clues together. This book wasn't necessarily a mystery; it was more of a thriller. I will say it was just so suspenseful. Like I was on the edge of my seat the entire time. Like and I will say that the way that I felt about this book, like I love this book, but the way that I felt when I finished this book, I felt so it felt so bittersweet because it felt like I needed like an epilogue to end it out from like 10 years from now. But I also just loved the vibe. Like it was very I said a lot of other stuff, but I also was very Hunger Games. Like, cause it has like a game component to it. It's very I would say that it's very Inheritance Games, Hunger Games. Like it's a lot of books, but it's very much has you on the edge of your seat. Like the entire time you're reading it, trying to like figure the pieces of the story out, while hoping for this character to like achieve her goal, which is like to like get into this Ivy League school. I think this book is about a competition that like it opens doors for you if you get into it. If you win this game, you have to be invited. So if you get invited, basically if you win this game, you get like you get any door that you want to open for you is basically open for you. So she wants like the door to open for her to get into an Ivy League school because of some things that happened that basically hindered her from getting into the school that she wanted to. And the entire time I was reading this book, I'm like, I hope she gets her goal. I hope she gets her dream. I hope she wins this. I hope no one dies. I hope no one dies. Like, I hope she doesn't die. Like the entire book. But definitely like recommendations. Like this is the author recently wrote another book that came out earlier this year that I haven't gotten yet because again, book buying demand and book slump. But read this book. Read this book. By this author, read this book. Okay. I think that's all the books that I've read that I have. The rest of these are basically books that are on my TBR, which I thought were basically over. But so this book, Bring By the Author. This is well, she seems like my autobiography. I even own so many of her this many of her books until I was going through my stuff, digging for stuff for this video earlier this week, and I was like, oh my gosh, I own so many of her books. But this isn't. I believe this takes place in the same universe as One of Us is Lying, but it's a whole different like school characters. Like I know nothing about this book. I know it's a different school, different characters. Still excited to read it because I love this author and I thought this does a good job. Also, I think it's just a short read, which I think would be good for me because I'm a long read person, but I think having a little short read like this to read in between the bigger reads that I have would be like exciting. But I just genuinely excited to like check out this book. It's hopefully I read it by the end of the year because it is in my TBR. So definitely I'm trying to read it by the end of the year, but fingers crossed. The next book is The Black Queen, which uh I think just for me, I've had this book for over a year now. I think I bought it last year. And it's also a signed edition, which didn't realize until just now. I have a problem. I just pick up books in the bookstore. I'm like, that's a pretty cover, or that looks interesting. And then I just bring them in my house to collect dust. Like, but I've heard other people say really great things about this book. And also, black girl on the cover. Always here for it. I'm gonna buy it. I'm always gonna buy a book. I'm always gonna buy a book with a pretty cover and a black girl on the cover. It's my weakness, personally. But really, like, I mean, October's almost over, but I'm gonna try to knock out this book and maybe like two of these other books that feel very Halloween-ish, more so. Next, this one I has been on my TBR for like a minute. I've seen a lot of Mommy Shu recommend it, and also I wanted to read it since I read Legend Horror like 3 years ago because I like first of all pretty cover. There was like two covers. I this is the hardcover. I literally only got this cover. Like I'm not a hardcover person, but I like this cover better than the soft cover, and so I literally only bought this so that I could have the soft cover version of this book, which is so pretty, and I love it. And I want to read this. Like this and The Blood Queen. I'm gonna try to read before we get to Thanksgiving so that I can like knock out the rest of the stuff on my TBR. But definitely like I've heard nothing but great things about this. I think they have magic. So I'm not sure. I look again. I have a problem. I pick up books and I just take recommendations from people without genuinely knowing what the book is about. But I feel like this is. I've heard so many people talk great things about this. And I feel like this is a good recommendation to give other people, while also taking it for myself because I should read this book. Okay, next book, Ravenous Fate, which again, know nothing about this book, but I know there's vampires in it. And one thing about me is I'm gonna buy a book with vampires in it. You know, like buy a book with vampires in it. Plus, pretty cover, pretty cover. Again, because I bought the hardcover, but it's so pretty. Ooh, it takes place in the 1926. I gotta start reading synopsis of the book because 1926 is crazy, but it also takes place in Harlem. That's cool. It's very much your Vampire Diaries. It's talking about humanity and stuff. I'm vibing with this. I'm excited to read this. I again know nothing about this book because I be trying to like avoid reviews that have because some people don't know how to not get spoilers. But genuinely and honestly, like vampire book, love it, recommend it. Always gonna recommend vampire. Speaking of vampires, The Immortal Dark, which I absolutely am planning on reading this year, and obviously was saving the best for last because cover super pretty. Look at this. Look at this. Oh my gosh. The detail on this book is everything. Which, by the way, I didn't know this when I pre-ordered this book that it was gonna come looking like this. Like, oh my gosh, it's so pretty. I'm so excited. I think this is this. I'm not sure this is this author's debut book, but I know that like I'm excited for it. I told my friend that I was gonna give this to her once I was finished with it. I'm sorry, I'm just showing you the inside of this book because it's so pretty. Like, so pretty. So gorgeous. Oh my gosh. I don't even want to read this. I may have to like buy. I hate doing this, but I might have to buy the physical. I might have to buy the digital copy of this book so that I don't have to ever touch this book because oh my gosh, this book. I'm so excited. Again, vampires, like, or at least I'm pretty sure this is the book with vampires in it. Again, I have a problem, as we have addressed. I just like picking up. I just like buying and ordering and picking up things with pretty covers and things that I've heard. Like I've been following this author for a while. She's been posting about this book on Twitter for like the longest, and this is like, and I probably am right about the vampire premise. I think this is the book that they were like that the guy is like Klaus, and I can't remember, but I can't remember like Klaus from the Vampire Diaries. I'm sorry, I should have specified, but I honestly can't remember just because I read so many books and I also follow so many like upcoming and pre-debut authors that sometimes I get like stories or plot lines confused, and I don't want to say that this is the story with the vampires in it because I might be wrong. But if it is, then the editor that's editing will just clarify. But honestly, The Immortal Dark is by far the book I'm most excited to read on my TBR. Like between this and Striker, the moment I finish The Apprentice to the Villain, which I'm almost done, I'm halfway done. So if my friend is watching this, I'm halfway done. I'll say by next week. But this book, super excited to start it. I mean, I'm probably gonna have to push it because I know I literally just said I was gonna try to read these two books, but I just I don't know. I'm so excited to read this book, and I wanted to since the author been talking about this. Since she's been talking about the book, so like we'll figure it out when we get there. But I have to finish Apprentice of the Villain first, and the Striker, and then we'll circle back to these. Okay. So the last two books are books that just were announced, but I don't have the physical copy for. I don't know if anyone else saw, but Lauren Asher announced that she was dropping a Christmas book, so I'm super excited for that, and I'll put it up on the screen. And also Ali Hazelwood, which for me, she's like a make or break. Like there's some books that I like, there's some books that I don't like. Like when I first started reading, I loved all her books, but now I'm like reading preferences have like shifted and evolved and changed a bit. So like not every book she writes is for me, and that's fine. But she announced that she was dropping like 3 or 4 Christmas books. I think they're novellas. I'm not sure, but those I'm excited for. So like very much like ah uh, but I think that's all the books that I have for my 4 recommendations /TBR today. Thank you so much for coming to my video. Hope you had a great time. Thank you for decompressing with me. Hope you take some of my book recommendations. Honestly, if you guys have any book recommendations, can you like drop them below? Because as much as I say I don't need more books, I would love some more book recommendations, especially fall or winter, because I feel like I don't have enough. Especially if they're mystery, because I feel like I need to read more mystery. Like I feel like I haven't read enough this year. So please drop some recommendations in drop your recommendations in the comments. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe if that's something you want to do or you're interested in. And I'll see you next video. Bye.